presenters for very incisive presentations. And obviously, Professor Chakravat stole the show, and our very own chairperson. And I want to say that when we are here, I think we have got to be very frank with each other. The cross-cutting issue from all the presentations is the issue of fiscal delinquency, fiscal indiscipline. And I think that that is the elephant in the room that we have got to confront. And I believe that we must take the Magufuli approach. When you look, there's a myth which is being peddled around that we have got a leaner cabinet, that we have got a leaner executive. But I think the reality on the ground is actually opposite. The truth of the matter is that when you look at our executive, it's still bloated. When you look at the number of ministers, there's just been a marginal decrease. If you look at your constitution, section 104, on the appointment of ministers and deputy ministers, it's very clear that the president appoints ministers. When it comes to deputy ministers, it simply says that the president may appoint, which means that the president may not appoint if he so desires. And it is my respectful submission that if the Minister of Finance can do without a deputy minister, if the Minister of Justice can do without a deputy minister, then all other ministries, in my view, can do without deputy ministers. If you look in November, we only had 2 deputy ministers. Now we have got 15. You look at our constitution, it talks about devolution, and you have got the ministers of state. If you are going to have chairpersons of provincial councils, I also submit that we don't need those ministers of state. Apart from the constitutional issue, but I think from a policy perspective, we can actually reduce the size of the executive. And when you look at the reason why we have got this bloated executive, it's because of the disparity between members of parliament and members of the executive. What I'm going to propose is very simple. Let's have the narrowing of the gap between members of parliament and those who are in the executive. After all, there are no special qualifications for one to be in the executive apart from the fact that it's a political appointment. And I believe that when we look at the question of vehicles, we talk of members of parliament, we are entitled to our vehicles. And I submit that most of them, apart from those 5, were appointed from outside parliament. My view is that let's just have one vehicle policy, one durable vehicle for all members. And this will bring to an end the business of having those in the executive, having the parliamentary vehicle, as well as 2 other vehicles. And those 2 other vehicles are the ones which are ultra luxurious, like your Range Rover Vogue or Range Rover Autobiography. So I submit that if we have that nationalization, you find that it will even enhance our oversight function, because there are members of parliament who want to be seen as good boys or good girls because they aspire to be appointed to the executive. But if there is no or little difference between the 2 branches of the state, then there will be no reason why members would then be compromised. I also want to talk about a key issue which the Honorable Minister of Finance skated around. That's the issue of political reforms. And I believe that this is very critical. I don't know whether it was by accident or by design that the Honorable Minister of Finance skipped on that slide. But I believe that we must have a frank discussion when we are here. Because those political reforms, if we start talking about them as one people, if we start resolving our own problems, then there will be no reason for any other country to instruct its nationals to block any assistance or any lines of credit for Zimbabwe. So I want to say to the minister, can he go over that slide which is skated over and present to us what are his proposals so that we can have a discussion about them, so that we can move forward. Coming to the issue of expenditure, apart from the size of the executive, Honorable Minister of Finance, I think we have got to be very specific. Why do we have this business of hiring planes? Recently we had that instead of hiring the Air Zimbabwe plane, that His Excellency used a Swiss plane or something like that. Why don't we use scheduled flights? That's what Magufuli does. Use a scheduled flight. It's much cheaper than hiring a plane. And I believe that Honorable Minister Chinamasa, about a year ago when he came to Parliament and said we are going to rationalize. We are going to stop traveling by first class. I'll go a step further. As members of Parliament, when we have traveled on sponsored trips, we have traveled sometimes with a minister. If the sponsor buys an economy class ticket, you get an upgrade for the minister. But for the member of Parliament, you go in Bombela. Let's be treated the same. If we don't have resources, let it apply to everyone. That also applies to the issue of allowances and so on. We have got one for the ministers and one for the members of Parliament. Let's rationalize. If it is good enough for members of Parliament, then it must also be good enough for ministers. My last point is on the issue of the exchange rate. A lot has already been said about it, but my view, let's be practical. It is clear that this fiction of 1:1 does not work. Professor Chakravarti has come up with a proposal, but at the end of the day, let's do something about it. We cannot just continue as it is, and then just hope that things will change on their own. Let's do something about the RTGS. It's not just the bond note, but the issue of the RTGS, that fictitious money. We must do something concrete so that at the end of the day, if we are going to have market forces determining the rate, so be it. If we are going to have bureau de changes operating, so be it. But we must have some system which is workable. I thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Can I ask the Minister of Finance to lead, and then the others will follow.
That's right. Should we stand off from here? Yeah. Let me thank. Let me thank the honourable members of Parliament for their contributions, but also try to react. It's better from there. It's certainly better from here. Let me thank you for your comments and contributions to this lively discussion and debate, but also thank Honorable Mona and Professor Chakravarti for their contributions as well. So as I respond, I'll try to touch on the areas that they've also raised. Maybe let me start with the comments from Chakravarti, and those resonate, especially around fiscal discipline. And clearly, that's my issue. As I said, I showed you the famous slide which shows discipline beginning to take effect as of September, with that budget deficit moving towards parity, at least within that month. And I'm hoping that again in the next 3 months, the same will happen, because that tap is clearly closed in terms of issuance of those treasury bills to fund whatever needs to be funded. Those overruns will not happen. This resonates with me. It's about fiscal discipline. That's what I'll deliver on. And then his comments about that, consulting with committees, certainly we'll do that after this session, committee chairperson by person. We'll do our rounds and make sure that we don't miss anything. And please do not hesitate to share with us anything you have in writing. It will be very, very helpful indeed if we have it in writing. Privatization, I fully agree. Let me, while addressing the privatization issue, let me, my colleague Liam Lisa, what's your name? Sorry, Svanda. You on the issue of privatization, let me just deal with it there. You see, by privatization, we don't mean 100% sale. I want to be clear about that. It's a partial sale. So government will retain shareholding. You have shareholding from the large investor. You also have shareholding from other Zimbabweans, whether be they diaspora, be they local, but government will retain its shareholding, so it continues to be part of the strategy formulation process of the company. Governance will improve because you have other shareholders. They won't allow any shenanigans. You can be sure of that. So that's what we mean by partial privatization. We've practiced 100% ownership. Look at what it got us to. We haven't made progress. So clearly, this is the way to go. But also it's an opportunity, Honorable Swanda, because some of these companies just need a foreign currency injection in terms of equipment, capital. It's not going to come from government. Government doesn't have it. That's why you need investors and share the burden of growing the company. I hope I can persuade you that's really, this is the way we go to go, and we better do it fast. We better do it fast. Absolutely. Then on, I'm still trying to pick up what Chakravarti said. Vehicles, of course, I'm on the side of making sure you get your vehicles, but we've been debating as to whether we give you 100% loan or a partial loan or zero loan. So we have options on the table, but either way, vehicles are on the way. I'm sure Honorable Mliswa is doing his maths and saying, what is the minister talking about? I need my money, my vehicle tomorrow. On the 2% tax, I think Chakravarti raised it, someone else raised it. I want to make it clear, the tax is staying. Absolutely, we'll just fine tune why this tax is appropriate, because it's inclusive. We already have 2.3 billion that has not been remitted to us as Treasury. And this is an issue, by the way, that someone also, actually Chakravarti also referred to that. So for us, this was also a way to make sure that we're able to cover, the net is wider in terms of coverage. We can always fine tune, you know, this is also evidence-based policy making. You introduce something, then discover, oops, there's a glitch here, you fine tune. It's normal, policies get fine tuned. So expect us to do that, but it will definitely stay. And as I said the other day in the House, to some people objective, you actually find even other countries in the region copying us, and also developed countries also copying us. And of course, when they do it, they have learned from us. They actually look better and smarter. But the truth is, we started it, and we have to do a bit of learning. And so we'll fine-tune, but it is here to stay. Ideas about a specific informal sector tax, again, this is an idea, it's on the table. Let it be considered, but it should be appropriate. It should not be punitive. We should make sure that it is subjected to the rules of fairness and equity. Now, just to be clear on the number, so that we are clear, you see the amount of money that Zimra is owed by corporates and other entities like this, the total is about 4.5 billion. It is broken down as follows. 2.3 billion is the principal. An extra 1 billion, just about over that, is interest that we've charged on that 2.3 billion. Then we've got another billion just over that in penalties. So total 4.5 billion. I just want to make that clear. So what we are always, so that we're always prepared to consider as Treasury is to, forgive or write off on the penalties, but I don't think I can do much about the interest. On the interest, because we've had to issue Treasury bills to fund that whole, those Treasury bills are costing you and the population of Zimbabwe money. I need that funded, so we are going to levy interest on that. But of course, we stand to be persuaded if we think that maybe we can have that or whatever, but the principle of writing off the interest as well is actually not a good one. Then on monetary reforms, I'll leave this to the governor to delve into that. Anything on our division of labor, on one-to-one currency, I'll leave it to the governor to handle that. But let me say this, on what Professor Chakravarti proposed, we're already seized with it. In fact, in our own analysis, we're way ahead of, but of course we can't announce until we are ready. So we are way ahead. You see, what's with these principles like this, Honorable Spanda. Now talk to Spanda only just for 2 minutes. Make sure that one person understands. It's like this. You see, all we are trying to do with this idea of a bond is to achieve two things. First of all, is to preserve the value of the RTGSs. The way to do it is to lock it into a perpetual hard currency like the US dollar. That's the first thing. Number two, you also want to make sure that these balances, RTGS balances, which are available to today, become a saving for you for the future. So it becomes a contractual saving. No, I'm explaining the principle. I'm explaining the principle. Because the bond is just an instrument, but the principles is exactly that. And then number three is to make sure that as you introduce the reforms, these balances cease to put pressure on inflation. So you also reduce the inflation. So there's a reason why this kind of instrument is attractive as we continue with currency reforms. Certainly the ideas around further opening of the capital account by making sure that the balances in the FCA accounts are tradable, which is what really is, whether you do it in the form of the import-export window in Nigeria, which was, by the way, I was part of the team that introduced that in my previous life. We know how it works, or just free trading on the direct FCA account. It could be similar in impact. That will happen if you, I'm sure if you speak to the governor, he will whisper to you that those things are on the way. So what we did in the monetary policy statement was to really to make the first baby step in that kind of direction. Yeah. So it's a gradual process rather than big bang. And of course you can understand why people want the big bang approach, because they're impatient, as they should, absolutely. So I just wanted to explain and I agree with these suggestions. It's a matter of timing as to when we do it. But we are way ahead in terms of the analytics. I can, maybe one day we can, I think once we've done and completed what we would like to do, we'll share with you with all the research we've done and say, oh, I was Shanda all this time. Yeah, absolutely, that's what is going on. On the diaspora, I'm very passionate about the issue around the diaspora, especially around their savings and pensions. We should have some kind of pension product for the diaspora, link that to mortgages, housing. Let's have a clear but also practical instrument for that. And I certainly agree that let's not work too hard to formalize the informal sector. Support it, it will grow, they will formalize themselves when they want to, because they know that without being formal, they can't access certain credit lines from the banks. So they know it themselves. They are very smart people when it comes to this. Now, Honorable Mona, I'm trying to see points of overlap. On the Bite Bridge, Chirundi Road, as an example, just on the infrastructure, I agree with you. We have to accelerate this. Members of Parliament, let me say something. A road is an economy. I repeat, a road is an economy. You make it more of an economy if you build feeder roads along it, which crowd in the communities along that road. But also, if you build other services along the road, you'll be amazed what a road can do to uplift communities along that road. We even noticed that the school attendance goes up because of a good road and good feeder roads, especially during the rainy seasons. More children can get to school. We noticed that also losses from farmers, from their perishables, tomatoes and whatever, drop because of good feeder roads and good roads, because they can get to the market. So a road is an economy. So I cannot overemphasize this, and I agree with Honorable Mona and others that we need to demonstrate that we can do this. I'm picking up on cost of sanitary ware, removing duties on it. Consider this done. We'll have something on the budget on this issue of sanitary ware. Consider it done. There is no debate. Maybe some of our officials want to debate. They won't be allowed to debate this one. So on the youth bank, I agree with you. The collateral issue is an issue. We need to deal with it. Otherwise, then people have no access to the capital. The issue around disabilities, whether it's allowances, support, registrar, this will be in the budget. We have to deal with it. Rebate around those with disability, absolutely. We need to look at that. I'm looking for issues that pertain to me. Then the recommendations from Mona, I think this is, in a sense, re-emphasizing what you already started, and I agree with you. Recapitalization of Agribank. Let me say this. I think that Agribank also presents us with another opportunity, which is having a special purpose vehicle for the compensation of farmers. So maybe as you think about that, playing its role now, we also may think of a vehicle that we can use for compensating farmers, given that we'll have a liability as payment to farmers on one hand, then on the other, we have the asset, which is the value of improvements of the land. So we have a balance sheet, we have a full balance sheet. And again, if we wanted then to put that under an SPV, special purpose vehicle, perhaps a bank like Agribank is already there. It can be that bank, or we create something else. So I just wanted to highlight that. I'm looking for something that coming to Parliament within 60 days. All of these are suggestions I accept. I just want to say this on the one-stop investment center that I think really let's have the aspiration as well of it begin to compete with Mauritius in terms of attracting offshore investors. Why not? And other countries that are attracting offshore investment. So we really become a gateway into Africa. I'm looking for something that is not a suggestion or rather a question from Daniel, Honorable Daniel Gwagweno, from Mangudya, multi-currency. I'm reading through my notes and trying to make sure that I deal with the, colleague Mliswa, you asked about Wanke and so forth. Let me leave that to the Minister of Mines. I think I don't have the full details. If you don't mind me postponing an answer to that question until I've consulted. I'm sorry. Oh, Minister of Justice says he can answer that. Thank you, sir. Then, do you want him to jump in now? Minister of Justice for Wanke? Maybe later. Okay. Ozentem says when will assets be sold? I'm pushing really. We really want a kind of step change on the privatization agenda. We really do. So I hope really within these 12 months we make progress in asset retrenchment. When 2019? Yeah. Is the budget for 2019? December. By December 2019, we should have done the retrenchments. But also it's like this, Honorable Mlisha, you retrench someone. If they are pensionable, the cost of the pension doesn't disappear from your budget. So while we want to do that, we must also be aware that certain costs will linger on, and they don't go away. But it still needs to be done. Yeah, it still needs to be done. Agricultural sector, I think this was Honorable Swanda again, saying that it has shrunk and so forth. No, this is not meant to be a negative message. It's just that its relative share among other sectors is now smaller. That's all. It doesn't mean that there's something negative going on there. I just want to make it clear. But you're also right that we need to improve productivity. All those things you said are valid. But I want to be clear that this message, I'm sorry, yeah. Oh. I'm listening. I agree. I totally agree. I dealt with privatization, back to currency, the deficit, ZAMCO. Hold on. No. I just want to make sure that. Yes. From Laborde, capitalization, caps holdings. No, this wasn't for me. Honorable Gonese, regarding fiscal indiscipline, look, I can only agree with you that really that is the issue. We need to focus on that and make sure that we save every dollar that needed to be spent. I cannot comment on the appointment of other people within government other than the ministers. If it goes beyond that, that's not for me to comment on. Of course, I like your vehicle policy, one car per person, So I'm fine with that, but and then on political reforms, no, frankly, I'm not the best person to discuss this one. But all I can say is that I think there's been enough communication around dealing with the issues like AIPA, POSA. Again, maybe I should leave the Minister of Justice he does a better job than me on the various bills and so forth, POSA, AIPA, making sure that those are amended accordingly for us to improve our democratic space. In any case, probably things like AIPA have been overtaken by social media. This is just reality. But I agree with you, fiscal discipline. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Can we have the RBZ Governor, Dr. Mangudya?
Thank you very much. Let me start by thanking you for the questions, which I think they are very critical. Let me start where Honorable Gonesa left. That the elephant in the room indeed is the fiscal deficit. It is the fiscal deficit that is causing us to have this debate. It's the fiscal deficit that is putting pressure on foreign currency. It's the fiscal deficit that is putting pressure on consumer spending. For Zimbabweans to spend more money to buy cooking oil, fuel, it's because we've got too much money in our pockets. The source of the money in Zimbabwe is mainly fiscal deficit. The deposit in this country, $10 billion, the major source of that, those bank deposits, is fiscal deficit. And therefore, if you deal with the fiscal deficit, most of the things that we're talking about here, about the value preservation, about the value of money, therefore it falls into shape. And I'm very happy that this we're discussing about this elephant in the room. But that's the one that is causing all the headache that we've got. You spoke about the debt assumption bill, which was approved by Parliament in 2015. That approval of that bill in 2015, it decided that the Reserve Bank debt, that debt should be assumed by paying in treasury bills. And therefore, it means as Parliament, you approved to have deposits in the banks, which only backed by foreign currency. Because you approved that we shall assume debt of $1.4 billion, as per not 5.5 billion, of $1.4 billion, by raising treasury bills at 5%. And therefore, by that approval by Parliament, which is on an act, it means you endorsed that we shall have money in our banks which are not pegged by the same people who are here. You were in Parliament by that time, most of you. And you approved that Mangudya, you shall pay these people who are owed by the Reserve Bank by TBs. But today you are not complaining that those TBs are not equivalent to what, US dollars. You are some people who approved it, not me. No. So, what it means, I'm not sorry. So, what it means, if you look at our books at the Reserve Bank, books at the banks, the deposit started increasing in 2015 because we're injecting money into the banking sector. So when you see the banks that have got too much money, those things are coming from those ones. That's why we are talking about same things. That's why I agree to your goodness that the elephant in the room is what? The first one. Number two, inflation is caused by increase in money supply. Where is money coming from? Money in circulation in this country, if you look at money in circulation, which is called money supply, it's $9.6 billion, just about 10 billion. In that amount, only 4.5% are coins and notes, which is your bond notes and bond coins, 4.5%. Therefore, if today remove them, they won't resolve the problem. The problem is about the 96.5%. Where is it coming from? That's your RTGS balances. So, when you look at by the way, you start by having a balance in the account. When you have money in a bank account, when you receive your allowances as honorable members of parliament and senators, money goes into account. The next thing is, how do you withdraw your money from the account? Your money in the account, comes from bond notes. Not at all. It is the quantity of money in circulation which causes inflation. So the question which we should ask ourselves through you, honorable speakers, is that where is this money coming from? That's what you need to plug the holes. Not from the medium of exchange. That which you have taken away from the bank. If you have $400 in account, you can either use Eco Cash, One Money, RTGS, bond note. So yourself, you're now connected on a withdrawal mechanism, as opposed to say, where is this money coming from? When there was panic in Zimbabwe, for example, when people were buying goods and services every day, because where was money coming from? Were they bond notes? No, because people put money in their accounts. Where are they coming from? So we should speak ourselves and say, how do we make sure that the money does not go into those accounts? And the elephant in the room is fiscal deficit, because government domestic expenditure, government domestic credit in this country is about $11 billion versus bank deposits of $10 billion. So that's the burden that we are carrying in the central bank. Try to fund those balances. But when you have money in your pocket, you're going to buy more goods and services. And those goods need to be imported. You're going to buy more cooking oil, more beer, more coke, more whatever. All those ones need imported. Delta imports $5 million worth of concentrates from Swaziland so that they can produce coke. But the demand of coke is very high because people will give them money in their pockets. Let me drive the point further. Let me tell you further the point. Let's talk of maize. Maize. We all produce maize. We sell maize at $390, right? $390 per ton. So far, Zimbabwe has purchased $1.3 million, sorry, 1.3 million tons of maize this year at a value of $507 million, right? Now, that maize is sold to the millers at $240, right? What does it mean? It means that we have paid our farmers $195 million above the price which was what to the millers. That $195 million, what does it do? It goes in people's pockets so that they can demand more tractors, more food, more whatever it is. So it means that again we're putting pressure on the foreign currency. Therefore, for us to have restoration of value, I thought I should start from the back first. Then you can see that everything will fall into shape. So if we deal with this animal, which we need to all of us, all our energetic, that's why I agree what the Honorable what was saying about these issues. If we deal with these fiscal rules and fiscal principles, as the Honorable Minister was saying here, and what you are asking, then you will find that everything comes in shape. Once you reduce the balloon that way, it means that you have the excess money to spend also. Now, where therefore bond notes sell for, and if you deal with this animal now, you find that even your bond notes becomes even not an issue, because that's not the issue. The issue is about what we are talking about, the money in the circulation. You spoke about issue about the government policy is very simple. The reason why we would 1-to-1 is now because there are essential products that we need to import this economy to have price stability. Our fuel is coming here, people are buying it using your RTGS, using what? Your Eco Cash, whatever it is, at 1-to-1. Your electricity today is imported at 1-to-1. Yes, the drugs that I talk about, Dr. Labode. Yes, cabs, pharmaceutical. They limit